Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Next Level Real Talk Podcast, where we have conversations on the journey of personal transformation and the pursuit of lasting peace and happiness with Sheldon and David. And welcome back to another episode of Next Level Real Talk Podcast. How we doing? How's it going, David?
Doing great over here. It's been a great week. And how are you doing? How was your travels and all that?
Good, feeling better. Yes, hanging out in New Mexico in a very kind of remote part of New Mexico. Had all kinds of crazy windstorms. Weather's been wild. Um, Yeah, and it just came up. I do this talk with a lot of shops about what their energy is, and sometimes we'll go into these shops where they've just been bought, and there's a lot of negativity or fear going on, or different types of things. And I'm always talking about we talk about the podcast about you have to connect to that place within you first, right, of peace, and then you can go forward, right, and then you're bringing
Mm-hmm.
that energy versus just acting out of fear, right?
Yep.
But I actually have a talk where I'll talk with the whole body shop crew about that, and it kind of goes back to some experiments and some things that I read about years ago, and I thought we would just talk about those.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
so it's kind of weird. So it's
Yep.
some interesting stuff. So I guess I'll tell the background story. So I read this book by this dude called Masuro Emoto. He's a Japanese guy,
Mm-hmm.
and it was years ago. So this is like 20 years ago. So, but my recollection was that he was a businessman, a Japanese businessman, had a problem with his ankle. Went to all the best doctors. I think he even flew around. I think he was fairly wealthy. Went all over the world, tried to get his ankle fixed, couldn't get it fixed. After years of trying and having a problem with his ankle, somebody said, "Here's some healing water." And I think it was German healing water. Why don't you try it? And he's just like, "What?" And so he drinks the water, and his ankle gets better. So he's just kind of like, "How in the world did that work? How did water heal my this problem?"
Mm-hmm.
So he wanted to photograph water at the point of crystallization. You know how when you see snowflakes and they take pictures of snowflakes and they're like these
Mm-hmm.
beautiful things? So because he had money, he hired somebody, a photographer, and what he would do is, like a petri dish, and he would take
Uh-huh.
water and you put like 10 drops on it, and it makes that little bulb, a
Mm-hmm.
little, bulbous little thing of frozen water. They would freeze a sample in a petri dish, and he would take it out, put it underneath like a camera, and it would start to kind of crack and open up and like create a snowflake on the top
Mm.
of the water. And this dude spent 6 months in this freezer with camera in a jacket. They got pictures of him perfecting the ability to photograph this water the moment it crystallized into the snowflake. Does it make sense?
Oh wow. Yeah. Oh wow.
So
That's crazy.
so it's crazy. So he spent months and months, and for whatever reason, Masuro Emoto wanted and paid this guy and said, "Hey, I need to do this, and let's do this thing." And so when they finally got the ability to photograph the water, the crystal, it's like photographing a snowflake. They started doing these experiments, and so he would take like one sample of water, like here's a bottle of water, and he would pour it, and he would divide it into two, and on one of them he would write like "I love you" on the bottle, and the other one he'd write "I hate you." And then he would take that water and he would do like these petri dishes, boop, 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 freeze the water, and then photograph it. And the results were completely different in terms of what they look like, what the water looked like. So I'm going to show you. So do you see that?
Yep.
So that is a water crystal where they wrote "thank you" on the bottle.
Mm.
It's kind of wild. It's beautiful, right? And then here's one where I think it was love. And so they started doing these interesting things where it's Japan is a mostly Buddhist country or whatever. Uh, they have these outdoor sewers, and they had pictures of the water when it was like sewage water, and it would just look like a blob. And I didn't really upload any of those; it's just like a messy blob, and didn't even create it. And then
Mm-hmm.
they would pray on it, and it would create different things. So here's one. You see that?
Oh wow.
And so that's the
Just
water
prayer.
before and after prayer.
And that's and let me stop you real quick, Sheldon. So this is when Sheldon and I talked about when he told me this years ago. I was like, well, wow, this is pretty cool. And it's not like some freaky experiment. It's just they just did it. And so it's a natural thing. And it's one, just writing on the bottle, and two, just saying stuff to them on a daily basis.
Yeah.
They did a prayer,
Yes.
and look what it did to them. It gave them one, and maybe just because they're talking to it. we don't know, but prayer obviously helps
And if you look at
other
that one, it
people.
almost like an image of a being, a person inside there,
Yeah.
like a
Mhm.
face. And there are thousands of these photos, and people started shipping him water from all over the world saying, "What is this water like?" Um, yeah, so like you were saying, the energy that you have influences the water. Um,
Mhm.
they put it in a microwave. They started exposing to different kinds of music, and classical music would create these really beautiful things. Some kind of classic rock actually made really beautiful, but some kinds of rap didn't. And it
Mm.
depended on the kind of music, and my guess was it had to do with the kind of lyrics that they were actually,
Yeah.
playing, right?
That's
But
crazy.
in the book, he has this story where he talks about rice, because I wanted to, how do you
This is
replicate
cool.
that? How do you replicate that, right? So in the
Yeah.
book, he has this story where they took rice, cooked rice, put it in 2 jars. In one of them, they said, "I thank you," and the other one, they said, "I hate you." And then the rice rotted completely differently, and they had a picture of it. And he said in the book, and again, this is like 20 years ago. My
Now
recollection was,
was it daily that he said thank you and
yeah,
I hate
all the
you?
time.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes,
understand it was a normal it wasn't just one time thank you, one time hate you. It was a
yes,
every day going in and saying
yes,
something to it. And they were separate places, so they couldn't hear each other.
yes.
Right?
And
Okay.
then
I'm getting away from your story. Sorry.
no, no, it's great. And so then, in the book, it said that my recollection is that the Japanese equivalent of Oprah, that's what the story was, that the Japanese equivalent of Oprah, they did this on their show. And so they
Mm.
had thousands of people all over Japan do it. And some people did 3. One was thank you, one was I hate you, and one was ignored. So they would have 3 jars of rice and they would do that. And they were very different in how they kinda rotted over time.
Mhm.
So, you know, we've talked about that on this podcast. I'm a big believer in your energy, right? And so,
Mhm.
there's a place called HeartMath in Santa Cruz, and they've been studying this since the 90s, and they've been able to prove now and measure basically your bioelectric field. Um, and that the field is 3 to 4 feet, so it's like arm's length around you. So that idea of the aura that you see in pictures and stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
Um, even like in the spiritual images of like Mother Mary, and she's always got this radiant kind of light thing around her. That's like her auric beam, her auric shell, whatever you want to call it, her energy field. Um, and that's radiated by your heart. And when they measure the field generated by your brain, it's like inches. So the electromagnetic field that your brain generates is like a couple of inches around your head, but the one that your heart generates is like 3 to 4 feet all the way around you. So the
Mhm.
heart field is far more powerful than the brain. And so Santa Cruz, Heart Mount, they've been doing this stuff. So I was into that. So this thing with the rice seemed simple enough that I could do it. Right. So I one day, and I used to eat a lot of yogurt, so I had these plastic yogurt containers, and they had like a stack of like 20 of them under my counter. So I took 3 out, I washed 3 of them with the same sponge, boom, wash, 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 boom. Had 1 pot of rice, scoop, 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 boom, 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 put the lid on, taped them shut, wrote love, hate, and ignore, and I lived at the time in this attic, funky place, and I had a shelf on both sides of the door, and I put them up high on the shelf. So no direct sunlight on either one ever landed. So they were always kind of elevated. So they neither side, depending on sunrise, sunset, whatever, never got direct sunlight. And then the one I put in the a corner of the room, all equally high, equally out of direct sunlight. And
By
here's
itself. By
huh?
itself. By
Yes,
itself.
3 of them by
Mhm.
themselves, one on each side of the door and one in the far corner,
Mhm.
and all by themselves, all kind of relatively in the same space, same temperature, all that kind of stuff. No, none of them ever got direct light, and I would go like this and like that. So those of you, if you're listening, I basically did prayer hands to the one and flipped off the other. So, and I would just go like that, and I would just go boom, boom, like that. I would go one side, boom, one side like that, and that's all I would do. It was super casual. It wasn't like, oh, I love you, I'm sending you love. Oh, I hate you. I just literally went like this, boom, like super fast, like a second. I would just turn one way, do prayer hands, turn the other way, and flip it off. That was all I did. Turn one
And
way,
never
boom.
say anything to the other one. The other one
Right.
got nothing.
And the other
Yeah.
one got nothing. And I would just go boom, 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 boom. Every time. So they were right by my front door. So every time I would exit or leave the building, I would just go boom, 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 boom. And I said I would do it for about a month. And so in the book, they were in glass jars and you could see it. And so I wanted mine. Mine were in these plastic opaque jars. So I had no idea whether the experiment was working or not. I thought that was better, right? So uh, I kind of forgot. I did it for probably 5 to 6 weeks, and one day, my friend Sean comes over, and he's like, "Hey, are you still doing that rice experiment?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh, shit. It's been, like, forever. I think it's been long enough. Let's see." So,
Mhm.
I opened it up, and I'm going to show you. Do you see that?
No. There it is.
So those are the
Wow.
3 on the deck, and you can see the far
Wow.
left one that's kinda greenish is the ignored one. The one in
Ignore
the
it.
middle was the prayer hands love, and then the one on the far right is the one that I was flipping off every day. So, let me show you the
Wow.
detailed one. Um,
I mean, that's just amazing just to see the ignore. Okay, keep
so can
going.
you see that one close up?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's the one that I was flipping off every day. And if you
Okay.
look at it, it was
I
really
hate.
disgusting. It was you could
Yeah.
see that the rice was literally pulled from the sides into this ball. It
Mhm.
was the dark black area, the mold around it was really strong,
Mhm.
and it was just sucked in. It looked like a brain. It was really weird. And then the one that I was ignoring looked like that. You see that one?
Wow. It's totally done.
It's totally
I'm
done. It's like green.
Yeah.
It was a completely different kind of decay, it was weird.
Yeah. But it's
Um,
all decayed. It's not
it's
like the
100%.
other one, the flip off one you were to is you still see some white,
Yeah,
I mean, not that it's good white, but
right.
this one is, like, done.
Yes.
It's they're all
And
each blade is done.
they say, like, with kids, a child that's ignored in some ways is almost worse than even if somebody's really strict and spanks a kid and
Mhm.
does all this really, harsh stuff that that just not even paying attention and ignoring a child is worse than
Mhm.
being too strict or something like that, right?
Yeah, because there's
That
'cause there's at least some kind of human interaction, not that it's a good
Yes.
human interaction,
Yes.
but it's something.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like you're at least there.
Wow.
You're a person, right? And so
Mhm.
ignoring person is actually the most negative kind of thing. And here's the
Wow.
one that I was doing the prayer hands to every day. Can you see that?
Wow. Now there is
So
some rot, but you don't but it's hardly anything.
yeah. So if you look at the bottom of the picture, there's a little bit of darkness, and in the middle, a
Mhm.
bit of dark. And then if you look at the top part, that part of the rice literally looked like it was just dry. Like you took rice and left it on a plate for a week and it dried
Mhm.
up. I mean, I
And
was
another thing that you said from the other one, from the, flip off one, it
yeah.
had come into a ball, so it kinda come
Yes.
to itself. This one's still open,
Yes.
it's kinda like a total so even though they're both decaying in a way, this one, even if it was the same, this one has not sucked in on itself.
Right. The hate one looks
Wow.
like
Yeah.
that.
Ugh.
It's
This
pretty
looks like a
wild.
brain. This looks like a brain. You almost can't in the other one, you almost can't see the grains itself
Yeah.
because 'cause they're all so mushed
Yeah.
and in each other. This one, you can see the grains at least.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
that was
crazy.
that was, the experiment. It seemed pretty conclusive.
Mhm.
I used to talk about this in the body shop world, which is kinda weird, right? So one time I did a conversation with my crew, my team, when I was a GM, and they were
Mhm.
like, "Well, let's do it." And I'm like, "Okay." So I did a pot of rice and I brought it in, did the whole experiment with them, and we put it by the time clock in the computer where they would clock in, so they all would do it. And I don't
Mhm.
know whether everyone was doing it properly. I never monitored it, right? But we had
Mhm.
3, one in the corner where they ignored, and then the other 2 where they would do prayer hands and flipping off. And, they were very different. I should have photographed them. They weren't as dramatic as mine, if I'm being totally honest. They were dramatic enough that they freaked out some of the techs.
That's awesome. That pulse is real. Yep.
I mean, some of the guys were like, "Whoa." And I'm like, "Yeah, what you bring matters.
Mhm.
Your field of energy interacts with other people's fields, and the energy that you bring matters." Because so many times in the body shop world, guys are like, "Oh, well, if this guy was gone or this guy was gone, or if everything was different, then I'd be happy," kind of thing. And we've talked about that many times. When the whole world is different, then I'll be happy. If this change, this change, this
Mhm.
change, this change, then I'll be happy. And that's what we typically do. Whereas we're always talking about there's a place within you that is at peace, and you can find that
Yeah.
place, and nothing has to change in your circumstances. And then you're bringing that peace into the world, and you're bringing that radiation of light, love into the world, and compassion into the world. And that experiment to me just really showed it so clearly, and then when I replicated it with the shop, and, so what I would say to the crews, the teams that I'm training is just like, "Hey, what you bring matters. Your energy matters. You want it to be a good place, you need to bring your positivity." And all of us are human. Nobody's perfect. No
Mhm.
one's you're gonna every day,
Exactly.
your best will vary day to day, right? Some days your best
Mhm.
is like, okay, you just gotta get through the day, and some days your best is, you're in a really good space,
Mhm.
but you bringing your best and you being the agent of peace. You wanna see peace in the world, you have to bring peace into the world, right? You have to
Mhm.
find that peace within yourself.
It
You know
starts with you.
Yeah,
Start with you.
everything starts with you, and this to me, this rice experiment was just really kind of a stark and almost harsh. It's like, wow, you know, you
Mhm.
you know, you're accountable for the energy that you're bringing into the world.
Yeah. So, like, there's a saying that says, like, when people talk about making change, in like, I want to change this politically or this the world, whatever, happiness, whatever. But it's think globally, what you want to change globally, and act locally. Like if there's some big change you need to do in your community, they're saying make that change, and that
Yeah,
will slowly, progress. Same thing with our own personal space and happiness. Is globally we want peace, we want happiness. Of course we do. I hope. Um, so how do I do that? Well, instead of going out and trying to make it, how about start with me, and then the person next to me, and the person next to them,
yeah,
we just got to keep going that way. So,
yeah. Be the peace that you wanna see in the world, right? So you wanna
mhm,
see peace, be the peace.
yep,
You have to be
be
the
the
peace.
peace.
You
Yep.
can't say, "When, the whole world is, the way I wish it were, then I will be at peace," The world
Mhm.
is bringing me out of peace, and that's the hardest message, I think, and I know we kinda almost, talk about it a lot, right? But I just want everyone to know that you have options. You have, agency. You have power. You have the power to change the state that you are in, and that is the only
Mhm.
place that you have real power is, within. That you have the ability to shift how you are responding to everything that's happening to you in the world, everything that you see in the world, everything that you're interacting with, whether it's a relative or a friend or a spouse or a coworker or just a stranger on the street. Those interactions and whether they trigger you, upset you, or they open your heart and make you feel joyous and happy, you have the power
Mhm.
to affect that. You have the power to make that a different experience. And Dave's had, you've shared many powerful
Mhm.
stories about the work that you've had to do within your own heart, right? Your own
Mhm.
mind and your own heart so that you can come to a different place and bring that into an experience like the birthday parties with the families, where there's other parts
Mhm.
of that family that are coming in that, you know, and yet then the manifestation is the experience is completely different,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
You're having these
Mhm.
beautiful experiences with people that you never thought you would be able to have a nice experience with,
Mhm.
you know?
And enjoying the whole thing rather than being
Yeah.
stressed during the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. But
Concept,
you
enjoy
came in
enjoy it, yeah.
there, but you did the work yourself,
Mhm.
You did the
Yeah,
forgiveness work, you did the release work, you did the
yeah.
healing work, you looked inside yourself and you saw where you're judging people, you saw where you're stressed out, you saw where you're upset, and
Mhm.
would release that and there's many different techniques for how people can do that, whether it's prayer, forgiveness, release. There's a bunch of different ways, techniques for how do you do that sitting in that space. Um, and then when you were able to do that, then you can come forward from a different
Mhm.
energy, from a different place, right? You're
Yeah,
literally fundamentally different that when you're coming forward, and you see in the Course of Miracles calls it the echo. You see the echo of that work. You see the
yes.
reflection of that work, right? You see, wow, he's totally nice. We're having a good conversation. Well, this is, and your brain will still freak out. Like, this shouldn't
Mhm.
happen. He's, I'm
Yeah.
supposed to hate him or whatever, but your brain kind of freaks out still. You're like, no,
Mhm.
that's okay. Right.
And all that starts with you even being talking to yourself because you're talking
Yes.
about talking to the rice. I love you, I hate you, and and ignore the other one. So within yourself, we never ignore ourselves because we are with ourselves, so we can't do that. But you have the love and the hate. If I'm always talking negative to myself, God, Dave, that was so stupid. You're such an idiot. Well, I'm bringing
That's
myself
beautiful,
down. I'm
David.
I'm going to
That's
be that one
powerful.
like
That
that
is
rice, that
100%.
bad rice.
That's a
But if I'm going
great
like, you know what, that didn't go well. You got this. Come
yes,
on.
yeah.
You can do
You
this. Let's stay
yes,
positive on this. You
yes,
got to give yourself positive talk
yes,
more than give others,
yes,
because you can't give others positive talk if you're giving
yes,
negative. So that this whole thing evolves around that too,
yes,
around you. Yes, you want to
100%.
make change in the world, but You got to be positive to yourself before I can
Yes.
help Sheldon. I have to be helping myself. So,
Matt Kahn has a book, and he's a spiritual teacher, and it says what the title is, and I didn't even read it, but I just like the title was so like mind shifting for me. It says, "Whatever arises, love that."
yes, we've talked about that before, and I
Yep.
love it.
Whatever
Yep.
comes up in your internal system, whether
Hmm.
you're feeling hatred towards somebody, whether you're feeling when you judge yourself, when you say you suck for having that feeling, you're a bad person. That's where, you're now in your judgment and anger. You're not in a place
Hmm.
of loving compassion. You're not talking to yourself nicely, right? But when you can say, "Wow, okay, I can understand why I would have those feelings. That's okay. I'm
Yeah.
okay." And you can be loving and compassionate and hold space for yourself.
Hmm.
Um,
And like you said,
you
it's okay to have those feelings. We
yes,
get mad at ourselves. Why? Why do you feel that? Why do I feel that way about my ex-wife's husband? Well, because it's real, and
yeah,
that's what most
because
people would
been
feel
through a lot
somebody.
with her.
Yeah, I was like, come on. And so understand that that it's not like, God, why do I feel that way? I should be over this. No, it's just because you're there. Just
Yeah,
accept it.
yeah,
And as it's there, then as you start accepting it, it doesn't mean like, okay, I'm always going to feel this way. No, just know that it's there. How do I work on? Then you say, how do I fix this?
yeah,
Okay, how
and
do I
the
make it better?
And the acceptance energy, I've talked about this before, is an energy of unconditional love. So
Hmm.
when you accept something, you love it, you're loving it in a way. Okay.
Hmm.
You're saying, okay, this is what it is. And that's a love, that's an energy of unconditional love. I'm going to accept this space that I'm in. I'm going to accept this feeling that I have. And love heals all things.
Hmm.
Perfect love casts out all fear. Right? It's in the Bible. So, um, uh, yeah, so and the other thing is that it ties into the meditation and all that, because when you learn how to quiet your mind and you learn how to witness the thoughts flowing through your mind, one of
Hmm.
the things that the neuroscientists covered when they study that is that the literally in the book I read, the expression they use with thought become less sticky. The
Hmm.
thoughts become less sticky. In other words, you have a bad thought, terrible thought. And most of us, because we identify who we are with the thoughts we're having. So, in other words,
Hmm.
I, Sheldon, am, this being having these thoughts, and these thoughts are
Hmm.
my thoughts, and it's all part of me. So, if I have a bad thought, then I'm a bad person.
Hmm.
Right? So that's what the confusion happens, right? But when you learn that sometimes these thoughts are these triggered emotional things from this energy that was stored in your body, from these negative traumas and these experiences, and you meditate and you start to connect to the heart space and you start to realize this is the center and the truth of who I am. These thoughts are just these things
Hmm.
passing through the sky and they're
Yeah,
temporary.
it's
This
those
too shall
clouds.
pass.
Hmm.
These are the clouds passing through my awareness, and they become less sticky, meaning you are no longer identifying who you are with the thoughts you're having. When you're
Yeah.
fundamentally can connect to that space within you that is your consciousness, your beingness, the fullness of who you are, that is separate and different from the thoughts you happen to be having. I can have some terrible, crazy thoughts, right?
Hmm.
But that's not me. That doesn't make me a bad person. When you can do that and they are less sticky, it makes it easier for you to be able to sit in that space of compassion for all that's coming up within you, right? So then as you have that and you're like, wow, okay. And again, can't give what you haven't received, right? So as
Hmm.
you're able to give yourself, like you said, compassion and understanding and love and support, when you can talk supportively to yourself, compassionately to yourself, lovingly to yourself, you then naturally extend that to the rest of the world, right? So then when something
Hmm.
happens to somebody else, you're like, "Hey, that's okay. Are you okay?" Somebody says something mean and you go, "Wow, man, are you in a good space? Are you everything okay with you?" Because
Hmm.
that was kind of crazy what you just said, or whatever, right? You're just less reactive to it,
Hmm.
right? And so however you respond to that thing will be more loving and compassionate because you have that capacity within yourself and you understand that. And
Right.
so go ahead.
No, like in my little world, okay, obviously you got the God on one shoulder and you got the angel on one shoulder, you got the devil on the other shoulder. But like when those bad thoughts start coming up, it's like, okay, the devil's just trying to pull me away into negativity. He's
Yeah.
trying to get me over here. So, but why is that thought even there? Not just because, oh, the devil put it there. Something's going on. So how do I get that so that doesn't come up as much anymore? It may
Yep.
come up and I can easily get rid of it. But don't just say, no. because I'm
Yes.
suppressing it again,
Then you're
and I gotta.
repressing and suppressing and ignoring.
Yep,
Yes.
and it's gonna come up even harder next
Yes.
time. So,
Yes.
it's
100% it
not easy
does,
to
right?
deal with it. Yeah,
Yes.
you gotta deal with it now and go,
Yes.
"Okay, this is gonna come up again. How do I process through this or get over this?"
Yep.
Whatever situation it is, and just know that, like me, I'm like, "Okay, Dad, we'll get out.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna work on this, go to the
Yeah.
other shoulder. Okay, Angel, where we at? What are we
Yeah.
doing? This is not a good situation. I
Yeah.
don't like this thought."
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's one of those. It's however you play it, whatever you do, just be able to have that. I call to me, it's a fun game.
It
Like,
becomes
really?
that.
Yeah. I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm like, why
Yes.
am I? Oh, because I have this anxiety. Okay, am I get? Okay, how do I work through that anxiety? Well, just chill or whatever it is.
Yep. Yep.
So if you have to make it kind of a fun game.
Yep.
I mean, talk to yourself. It's okay. Just don't do it in public. Just talk
Yep.
to yourself.
Yep.
You
And
know.
being able to sit and hold space for
Hmm.
yourself while you're having these things and not judging yourself allows that
Hmm.
energy to kind of pass through you and flow through you and then becomes less sticky. And that's what heals it, honestly. And people don't realize that. And it can be layers for stuff that's really deep and childhood traumas, and those are really intense and sticky. So, Dave and I are not
Eh,
trying, we're not trying to trivialize this process or
mm-mm,
make it like, oh, you should be able
mm-mm.
to do that. It's easy. No, this stuff
It's
can take some
not.
time.
It's not. Um, and it hurts. It's hard.
Yeah,
You're like, I don't want to deal with this, but no, you got to find the time. Maybe you can't do it right there because you're in the middle of something. When you get home or wherever you can go, and just go, okay, I got to get through this. This really hurts. How do I process this out?
yeah.
And it's not going to be something that'll be, as we said, it's not an easy thing. So you got to be able to, one, be willing to sit down and go through it in a hard way. It may take several days, several weeks, several months as you start processing it, but know that eventually, as you slowly whittle away at that situation, it gets better and better. It
I
does. I'm truth of that. So,
yes, you are, you did the work, right? You
mhm,
spend the time and you understand it. And now you have the tools and you know how the whole game works, right?
yeah,
It is kind of this
mhm,
weird game. And so that's like you're saying, it's like a game. I had
uh-huh,
one happen just the other on the flight home. Um,
mhm,
This is a funny one because I'm pretty good with most of the circumstances in the world that are happening. I'm pretty good, but this one is like hilarious. So I'm sitting down and I'm in American Airlines and I'm not like, so I've got like the highest status you can have, second from highest. I'm not with United, I'm
mhm,
really high up there. So you're like, the first ones to board. Like when United, I'm like almost literally the first person sometimes, right?
uh-huh,
So you get better seating and all that. In American, I'm like 4, so it's still good, but not the best. But anyway,
mhm,
you're like one of the first 10 people on the plane, and they usually say, put your baggage on top and then your backpack under your seat, right? Well, if you watch, half the people will do it, half the people won't. Half the people are like, fuck it,
mhm,
I'm gonna do whatever. And oftentimes it's the people that are boarding first because they're the ones who fly all the time. They're like, well, I don't care, whatever, right?
yep.
And usually they don't, right? So I'm fairly in the back of the plane, even though I'm one of the first groups. And this
I
flight
love being in the back of the plane, by the way. I go straight to the back.
so this flight
Uh-huh,
attendant's standing right there, and I put my bag up and I put my backpack, and I put my backpack on its side and I'll push them together. So they really isn't
uh-huh.
taking that much more room. She's like, take your backpack out and put it under your seat.
Just boom.
And I got triggered. Like, and that's happened before. It hasn't happened in a couple of years, probably. It's been a while, but I've had that happen before where they'll tell you, every once in
No.
a while you get a flight attendant and she'll go, boom. And so I'm sitting there and I can feel this rage and this anger coming up in me, man. And I could feel it in my chest. And I just sat down. I was like, "Whew," and I'm like meditating and I'm feeling it. And I'm like, whoa. And the intensity of it was pretty crazy. And I opened my eyes and the woman's standing like 5 rows ahead of me, and she's looking at her phone now, and a person directly next to her throws his backpack up in the upper thing, right? And sits down. She doesn't see it. She
I didn't
doesn't
say
say
anything.
anything. Doesn't say anything, right? And then this woman right next to me in the road, directly next to me, throws her bag in sideways, totally the wrong way. It's supposed to be on its edge, on the edge, da, 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 right? And it has a little diagram saying, please put it on the edge. She just like throws her back up and then throws her backpack up there. And so she's like taking the whole entire compartment with stuff and then sits down. Woman doesn't see that. There's a person up there, 2 rows in front of me, 3 bags, one person, right? Throws stuff up there. Like, and your mind goes into all that judgment. See that person, you're not
Mhm,
catching them, and that's the thing I think that catches me. It's like a hook for me. Still, is like
mhm.
hypocrisy or unfairness. That's not fair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If
Mhm,
you're gonna do it, fine. I wouldn't have a problem if you did it to every single fucker who walked on this plane and you pay
Yeah.
attention and you caught them all because I know you're
Yeah.
not because you never do. Right.
Mhm.
And,
'Cause I
you
was
know,
the first one,
just
you
because I
saw me,
happen to
you
be the
didn't see
first,
anybody else.
and in my brain, I'm like,
Yeah.
if I'm the first one, I'm the one that's flying the most. I have the
Yeah.
highest privilege on this plane. And
Mhm.
of course, my ego, you should treat me better than them, if anything, right?
Yep.
If you're gonna enforce it, you should be enforce it with the later people because they're the ones who fly once a year. I'm flying every
Yeah.
freaking week. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so, yeah. Oh, dude, it was intense.
Wow.
So I'm sitting there the whole time the boarding's going on. I'm like, okay. I got meditate. And every time I'd open my eyes, I'd see something else crazy that would make it even worse. I'm like, oh, there they
Wow.
go. Oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one up there. You stand right there. She didn't do anything
Course,
about
now it
that
all
one.
stands out.
You
Not
know?
that you ever noticed it before at all. Now
Yeah.
you
Well,
notice it.
yeah. So, and then of course, ultimately, she fixed that one right next to me. She had to fix that bag because it was in
Mhm.
sideways, blah, blah, blah. And then there was tons of space, and then she just closed it. And I was half a mind to open it, take my backpack, and put it in there and close it because it was by this time the boarding door had closed, and so there's nobody else coming on the plane, and there was plenty of
Uh-huh.
space. I mean, my brain was just like, I should just stand up right now, open that fucking thing, and shove my backpack in there. There, what are you gonna do, lady? You know, I mean, the craziest things were entering my mind. The crazy. I was like, yeah, it was intense, and so,
And
so
just
I'm
a little
sitting
time
there.
and going like and not the funny thing, but the funny thing is you're trying to calm down.
Yeah.
You're sitting there to yourself, going, breathe. It's okay, but you're seeing it. It keeps triggering you. It keeps triggering you.
Yes.
But you have to, in the process, you processed it, but it took effort
Layers and
in that
layers and
moment.
layers and moments and
Yeah.
moments and moments.
Within
Yes.
that, let's say 5, 10 minutes, you're
Yeah.
going through it so hard.
Yes.
And so, and that's right there, real evidence. Go like, this isn't easy. You have to
Yes.
fight the.
And then at the
Stop it!
end,
Stop it! Stop
I could go
it!
through the flight. It's like a 3.5, 4-hour flight. I go through the flight. I calm down. I watch a movie. Everything's good. I'm feeling good. But if I'd start to think about it or I'd see her, I could feel some of that coming back
Mm,
up. Right. So I'm like, okay, not judging myself, being kind, okay, there's some deep stuff going here. What is it? What is this
mhm.
thing that, that's what, we talk about, right? It's like being like a child, right? You're just like, okay,
What?
where's this coming from?
Yeah.
What
What?
is the taproot?
Who told me no before that this is triggering me?
Yes,
Someone told
exactly.
me back in my life that said no. Now I'm still upset at them.
100%. Something
You know, who
quote
knows?
unquote unfair. It feels
Mhm,
unfair. You're doing it to me, but you're not doing it to them. And that's the
mhm.
thing that I think, like I said, if I knew that they were 100% consistent on these airplanes, which they're never, not even close.
No.
They just
Uh-uh.
pick one or two people. Even the race thing came in my head. Oh, you doing it because
I
I'm fucking,
I
you know
was
what I mean?
just gonna say maybe it goes
Even
back to
that
your
popped in my
race.
head, right? And I'm like, "Oh,
Mhm.
did you see the crickets? Oh, yeah, that one right there, she's a white person, no, 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 oh my god,"
You
and I'm
went
like,
you
"You
went
are
deep, deep.
you are
You went to
fucking
the inner
insane right now," you know what I mean?
you went to the
Like,
inner layer of the onion.
yeah, I'm like, "Oh my god," you know what I mean? So, it was crazy how much energy and how
Wow.
intense that can be, and that's trivial, and, when you look at what you've been dealing with, that's 100
Mhm.
times, like, more real and personal, right, intense, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here talking about a stupid flight attendant telling me to take my backpack out, right?
Such a
Whatever.
simple backpack,
Absolutely not a big deal, but, I think it's
but it's a
also
trigger.
it's a good
Something to
example,
trigger.
like in the Course in Miracles, they
Mhm,
say minor irritation is the same as murderous rage.
mhm.
So, and meaning, if you're out of peace, you're out of peace. It doesn't matter how far you're out of peace.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the thing is. Something happened in there, like you said.
Mhm.
And I was, sitting back and remembering getting yelled at as by a teacher, unfairly, getting these things happening to me, when I was at school. All these things are flashing. And some of them are actually fairly core wounds that have come up many, many times in this process of healing the stuff
Mhm.
where I've had to release multiple layers of the onion. It felt like, your presence, your ability to allow that energy to come up and flow through you is healing in and of itself. So those things have to kind of
Mhm.
release out of your body. So you can literally go, wow, where am I feeling this? Because sometimes you'll feel it stuck in different parts of your body. But just playing with it, like you said, and just, not letting your mind get too trapped in the judgment
Mhm.
and not judging yourself for having those thoughts. Like, because you start beating yourself up. Like, I can't believe you're having that thought. That's so crazy. What
Mhm.
are you, an idiot? Da, 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 whatever. Or I can't believe you've been doing this work for so long. I can't believe that you still have that thing. Your brain will start to hook you back into some kind of judgment of yourself.
Mhm.
and letting all that stuff come up and all the insanity of it and kind of like cracking up like, wow, you're going to go there.
I know,
You know
right?
what I
Like,
mean?
okay, mind, you really want to go there? Okay,
Yeah.
no, let's just calm down.
Yeah. Like I used to
That's
walk through the shop and I would see something going on and I'd be like, I want to rip that fucker's head off right now. Like I would have these crazy violent thoughts go through my brain of like, I'm gonna beat that
be a
motherfucker.
guy. Yeah.
And like, wow, that was pretty mean. I just start laughing, like, wow, that was a crazy thought you had in there. But I wouldn't like think I'm a bad person because I had this thought. And that's where the judgment hooks in and
Mhm.
you start to like beat yourself up and it creates a cycle. And in the course, they talk about your judgment is what makes it real. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Like
Yeah.
you're judging yourself and you're saying, "Oh my gosh, you're a bad person for having this bad thought." Now you just made that you gave energy to that thought. Whereas if you just go,
Mhm.
"Wow, that's a crazy one," laugh
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah,
and then you
yeah,
can
don't have that thought, let it go. Then
yeah,
you're like, "Okay." Yeah.
yeah, you just,
Then you've
redirect.
you've pushed it away, yeah.
Yeah, you
So,
just redirect, let it go. I'm here. Go back to your
uh,
center, go back to your heart space. You feel, the shift. That those things uh are what heal and what allow that stuff to release, and then it fundamentally shifts you, right? So anyway, yeah, it was pretty funny. This was just
that's
yesterday.
crazy. I
It
love
kinda
it.
I was just like, "Whoa."
Like, real life right now, like,
Yes, real life
yesterday.
right
I
now.
love it.
And, you've talked about stuff that's really kinda quote unquote "big stuff,"
Mhm.
um, and it just popped in my head to share it because,
That's great, I
sometimes
love it.
because it doesn't matter what it is, it can always be
Mhm.
intense, and your mind will always play those games with you. Like, my mind went crazy, it went into the
'Cause
racing, it went
'cause
into all this
yeah,
stuff, it went into
we sit here and talk about, like my stuff, which is, like, the divorce stuff and just other stuff that kinda came up with it all. Um, People may not be going through that. It's everyday stuff. Yours was
yes,
just a freaking backpack in a
2-second
airplane. I
interaction.
mean,
Take
yeah,
your
and
backpack, put
you
it
went
down.
crazy. So everybody's going through this every day.
Yes.
How many times do we go
Yeah,
through that?
yeah,
I'm telling you, I don't want to count Monday, but we'll try to. Tuesday is testing day, so that will add some numbers. I'm gonna actually do that Monday and Tuesday, kind of do the numbers
yeah,
because it gets during
yeah.
testing day. So I'm gonna have a little
These
experiment.
things are happening to us all, right? And the energy
Mm-hmm.
is intense, and so those things can bring up and I was shocked at how intense the energy was for me around that. Um, it kinda surprised me, but, you know, got the
Mm-hmm.
came home, I was talking to Jacqueline, she was cracking up. She's had some stuff come up. It just feels like right
Mm-hmm.
now it was like the magnitude of the intensity of like it's almost like a rage over this little thing, and you're
Yeah.
like, wow, you're losing the plot. The whole time I'm just sitting in a chair. So nobody
Yeah.
knows, no one knows. This is
Mm-hmm.
all like within your own mind, you
Yeah.
know, your own system.
Exactly.
Um, and then of course there was nobody in the center seat. So I just moved my backpack to that floor,
Yeah.
like, with some attitude.
I'll show you now.
Yeah, yeah, watch this.
I'll show you.
Yeah, here, see my backpack? It's going over here. You know what I mean? You know,
Yeah, it's not in the top anymore, but it's right here, and it's not under.
and I still have my leg room. Ha! Or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. It was crazy. It was super
Yeah,
crazy.
I love it, and the biggest thing I don't are we
Yeah.
kinda done, you think?
Yep,
Okay,
yep,
'cause
yep.
I love that story, by the way, because that makes me like, "Okay, maybe I'm not that bad."
No, dude.
Because we all have those. The, biggest thing that you 'cause I love what you said earlier, what you bring matters, and
Yeah,
that's just shoes. What you bring to the table, everyone's like,
yeah,
in meetings, what you bring to the table matters. What
yeah,
what you bring to an interaction
yeah.
matters. And,
Yes.
what you say or what your aura is affects others as much as it affects you.
Yeah.
So you got to work on yourself and make sure your aura is good and talk to yourself, give yourself positive talk so you can work with others and work in a positive way. And
I
then the
think that
final,
the importance
mhm,
real quick, I think the importance of that is that oftentimes people who are wounded or in trauma feel like there's that victim mentality, and I don't wanna
yeah,
downplay that because
it's
many
real.
people we've all been traumatized and had wounds, and so there's this aspect of us that feels like a victim, and victims don't feel like they have power. And so when you
Hmm.
recognize that you actually do have power and you do have this energy and you're bringing that into a circumstance and that affects the nature of that circumstance, right?
Yeah.
So it does help you to remind you that you have agency, you have power
Hmm.
in this
Yes.
situation. Your ability to deal with that shifts how that dynamic works.
Hmm.
You can do that. Take some
Yeah.
work.
Because
Anyway,
because yeah, because as that victim. You like,
You think
I will tell you, I cannot even fathom what some people have gone through. So
right.
you have to say, "Yes, I they are a victim. You are a victim.
Yep.
How do you work with that so that you can get through the
Yes.
processes?"
Yes.
So we hope that you are getting that help. We know that you probably are, but, just know that we are, as Sheldon said, we're not downplaying that because we
Yeah.
don't know,
Yep.
it's hard. The last thing is, be the peace that you wanna see in the world, and
Yeah.
that's kinda, what I'll
Right.
leave you with because that's what we want.
Yeah.
Where do you want the peace? Yes, I want peace amongst people. Well, I gotta have peace within me.
Yeah.
So talk to yourself. The extra credit homework is just when something comes up, try to turn yourself into talk positive to yourself. Hey, that's a tough thing I'm dealing with. That's hard. Don't be mad at yourself. Just kind of get through it. Yes, I got angry at this person.
Yeah.
Why'd you get angry? It's okay. Calm down. Either say apologize to them or say, hey, next time I gotta watch the trigger.
Yeah.
So
And that
give yourself
innocent
positive
wonder
talk.
that innocent wonder too, like, you're like, it's almost like, "Whoa, where'd that come from? Why is that there?
Hmm.
How's that going?" You know what I mean? What's going on? It's like this weird scientist where you're exploring your own inner world about
Hmm.
how all this stuff came to be,
Yeah.
with innocence, without judgment, with compassion for yourself, all of that. Yeah.
Hmm. Yep. So that's your homework. Try to do some positive talk as things come
And
up this
if
week.
you
So
want, you can start the rice experiment.
yes, I think I might be one of doing that. Now, real quick before we leave. So you cook the rice,
Yeah.
right? You cook it and then you put the in three different. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make sure it's cooked rice so that we know.
Yes.
Okay.
People have tried it, and if you go on YouTube and you do Masuro Emoto or that kinda stuff, there are people that have done tons of variations on this experiment. Saw one where it looked like they were in the Middle East 'cause and it was in IKEA. It was in the IKEA
Hmm.
store at a landing, and it had a big IKEA sign, and they had 2 plants, and they had them in plexiglass boxes, and they put a recorder inside the box, and the schoolgirls, it was like a private looked like they were all Catholic, they had the little skirts and everything, and they had bullying statements, and they put the recorder on repeat, and so
Oh
inside the
wow.
box, the plant was being exposed to, "You're ugly, you suck, I hate you, da, da, da," and the other one was all loving statements, and then they put a camera on it, and they time lapse photographed it, and the plant that had the negative stuff died, like, 3 times as fast as the other one. He's like,
Wow.
"Rrr," and he just starts to die, and the other one's still living, and they don't water him or anything, they just leave him, see which one dies faster.
Oh
And the
wow.
one with the
That's
negative
crazy.
input just dies way faster. I
Way
mean, there's
faster.
a million
That's
people that have
crazy.
done see, you
And
yeah,
we'll put in the information about in our bar about what's the guy's name so you guys.
Masuro Emoto. Yeah.
Yeah, because I will never remember that. So yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
put that in our
Yeah,
information.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Make sure you have friends out there. Make sure you tell them to listen. Share it with somebody and subscribe because you'll
Yeah.
get a little email now and then telling you, hey, listen up. So never want you to miss an episode. We're out there and we hope that you guys are doing well. And this week, I hope you guys have a keep that big smile on your face. And when something comes up, kind of laugh at it. Say, okay, we're gonna get through this, and be positive with yourself, even though it is hard. Be positive and keep that smile on.
Yes. Love you guys. We'll see you next time.
Have a great week.